Kia ora whānau. How's it going? He mihi tēnei ki a koutou e mātaki takaiala. Ki te kōrero o te rānei. Welcome whānau. It's great to have you with us and joining with us wherever you are around the country. I have here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, or in America, or in Indonesia, or Australia. Whatever part of the world you're in and you find yourselves, I pray that the Lord's blessings is upon you and that you'll be encouraged from our word today. Especially in light of what's going on in the world. We've got the Armenian conflict, we've got the Ukraine conflict, we've got what's going on in Israel and Gaza, and that we've got going around the world in regards to the rise of evil and the unashamedly display of that in regards to people across the world and across nations and space. So I pray that this word will be encouraging to us as we try to be faithful followers to Jesus Christ in the midst of all the challenges that are before us, both politically, socially, economically. It can lead us down pathways where, if we're not careful, we are following the patterns of this world, as Paul talks about it. Anyways, it's great to have you with us. Click the like button, click the share button, click the notification bell, just to if you want to get ongoing notifications of our words on Monday, or our Kaitaki Marakai, or anything else that we post here. We had a really good service yesterday. Really surprised at the engagement of folk and the real connection that the Holy Spirit made with what was shared. And I just want to reflect a little bit on that today. And I've got my little prop that I used here. I've got the security lock box side of things. And today it's all about getting your code reset. And not allowing others to steal from you, from the perspective of doing emotional withdrawals without your permission, because they've worked out your PIN code and therefore are able to trigger you in the emotional responses. Renewing our PIN code in order that light may shine. And it stems from Romans chapter 12, as we'll read today together. Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in the view of God's mercies, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. I just want to remind us today and just keep us in check in relationship to the opening passages here, is that ultimately the charge that Paul has given us is so that we can be in a position, that we can be in a framework and a mindset and a heart attitude and in a relationship with Jesus in order that we're able to test and approve what the will of God is for our lives. In other words, that we're able to realign ourselves to his heavenly purposes for us and not the agendas of this world. To his heavenly purpose for us that were actually designed in us and written about us as recorded in Psalm 139. Before we were created, God knew us and had designed talents and gifts and that kind of magic wand ability that you and I can have. That seems like, man, when I'm functioning in this space, it's just like as time just disappears, or effort is real easy because you're functioning in the purposes of why God has created you. So what I'm talking about, if we remember that then we're able to test and approve what God's will is, his perfect. I'll actually read it again. His good, pleasing, and perfect will for your life. Sometimes we walk through life, this flow of current that we get into, and it's basically, the pattern of this world is basically set up like this. And it's a lie. It's actually a lie, because it's all man's effort. And here it is. You're born, you live for a little period of time and grow up in your home, and then you get sent to kindergarten or kohanga reo or school, and then you've got all these other ideologies and ideas and methodologies being placed upon you and how you should be. And so you spend time in the school system, which is, for some it's 10, 12, 15 years of education where others are feeding into you on how you should be. Historically, those things are around arithmetic, social sciences, what else are there? Reading, writing, and in my case, when I grew up, we had the trades that we could actually do as well. Those core papers. But now you've got all these other agendas coming in to try to shape the population into a particular output. And throughout that educational process, they fit you through a funnel, and they produce these sausages, all hopefully looking to the same, in order that they then go into either a university predominantly, again, other things coming on and teaching you how you should be. And you get your degree and your qualification, and then you hopefully move along the process funnel or line, and then you pop out and get into a job, and quite often the narrative, particularly around the middle class, is that make sure you get a good education and you get a good job, and at some point along you might get married and have children, and then the cycle starts all over again. And why I say it's a lie, because for the populace, we are following a pattern of this world that can easily detract God from it, and you take God out of it, and so the influences from the other world, or the other parts of the world and the society around us, the flow is, we actually want to create a herd of people that generate income for the government or for the elites. And so we get locked into this cycle of the lowest form of income generation, the lowest form of applying our skills, is where we're locked into selling our time for money. And it's an exchange of energy. I put my energy in to receive a paycheck each week, and quite often people are now living from paycheck to paycheck, and they're tied into the job, and some people got jobs that's more than one job, and that just to survive, and homes are having to have 2, 3, 4 incomes in just to try to meet their weekly bills. And it's no wonder that the lower class, those that are less fortunate and low docile communities, struggle within that, because they're limited in their time, they're limited in the energy they can give. At times they're limited in their understanding of how to generate income. So they're reliant on the industries, and industries are pretty cruel when it comes to particularly small towns. Down in Moire, where you've got a meat factory there that's the only employer in town, and so quite often you'll find that in small towns and rural areas you'll have this big industry that dominates the employment market, and therefore people have only got one choice to be able to sell my energy and time for work. And all these things contribute to what we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks, about how do we, in the midst of this flow, this river that we've all been born into, and this narrative that we've told to us, go to school, get educated, get a good education, get a job and carry on a job, work for your job until you're 65, retire, get your gold watch or whatever it might be, and then hopefully you'll have some sort of retirement funds. Who said it should be that way? But that's what we're brought into, and that's what we've led into. And that's what we're told. Conform to this pattern, and someone will look after you if you can't look after yourself. But it's problematic because everyone's competing for a job, competing for a salary, competing for positions, competing for whatever it is that they're needing to survive, and there's only a limited resources in that linear process. And so you'll find that folk, that particularly if they've got toxic leaders, their job, they'll jump around from job to job until they find something that's going. Why? Because they're in that river and flowing down the pathway. And if we're not resilient inside, the rubber band experience, when we've got that toxic leader and it twists us, or if we've got packs on our back, or we've got luggage that we're carrying, that it can be the system, it can be people, it can be colleagues, it can be the unfavourable working conditions that you're at. And for some people, they're just to meet ends, they're working crazy hours. And if they had a magical wand, they would want to do something else. And today we've got this idea of a code. And I alluded to last week a little bit about how our packs are like our emotional bank account. We put good things in, good fruit or negative fruit, good things in or bad things in, and these can come from people, and sometimes we're unaware of what people are doing and oblivious to the negative stuff that's been put in or withdrawn from us. And quite often high-performing folk and those that are working and functioning well can work at a higher level and know how to find rest, and they seem to have found their eureka space and go, oh man, I can really function well in here, and seems to be like, oh, those are awesome folk. Whereas most of us, we struggle with the tension of trying to make ends meet and meet our families and meet the bills and put food on the table. And so there's this ongoing struggle, and it seems like someone has worked out our code and to our emotional bank account and able to open it up and taking withdrawals at us. So I go to work and there's been a withdrawal. I go to the sports field and there's been a withdrawal. I go to some friends and the conversations that come on, there's been a withdrawal. And as part of the kind of self-medication, I jump online and I'm scrolling through Instagram, Twitter, or whatever it might be, and I'm starting to read posts that are troubling and upsetting, and it's bad news, and so there's a withdrawal. And then we decide to have a kai in front of TV and watch the 6 o'clock news, whether it's Channel 3 or Channel 1 or first thing in the morning, and it's all bad news. And so there's another withdrawal that's happening. And it seems like someone's worked out our code and they're withdrawing. This is an exemplar of the patterns of this world, where others are feeding in, are twisting, are putting bad messages in or bad fruit, or have got our code emotionally and are able to come up to us and push the right buttons, and then there's a withdrawal. And so we come to an end of time. It might be a week, or it might be a month, or it might be during winter, or whatever season in life that we find ourselves in, and we're emotionally drawn out, we're stretched, we're fatigued, and there's this black dog sitting on the shoulder, and you're feeling depressed, and so you go to the doctor and saying, I need his help, I can't sleep, and so forth. If Paul is encouraging us to do some acts that enables us to test and approve what the will of the Father is for our lives, his good, pleasing will, that means that there's a type of relationship that God is wanting to have with you and I, likened to returning back to the garden that Adam and Eve used to have. Based on all that has been said through chapters 1 to 11 of Romans, Paul is saying, using the therefore part as a hinge between everything that was communicated beforehand, the work of the Holy Spirit, our faith comes by our acceptance to God comes through faith, and the idea of us being grafted into Israel. We're not a replacement of Israel, but we're part of that Jewish story, that history that has been going on for centuries. It's based on that and on God's mercy that we can actually offer ourselves as a living sacrifice. The act of worship is offering all who we are. In the midst of that flow that we're going down, and the twisting of rubber bands, and the carrying of our packs, and the coding that we have, as we can offer ourselves as a living sacrifice. We can offer it to the Lord and say, Lord, help transform me by the renewing of my mind. And in so doing, Father, give me a new code. Give me a new code that you know. And that as we put the code in, he starts to open up the deep things in our lives, and the light shines in places of darkness. And so instead of being all locked up and tight and troubled, because we're born with this is the state of our oppression, this is the state of our bondage, is sin has been a code in us that keeps us away from the Lord. But regeneration and renewal comes by asking Jesus to give us a new code that he knows. And so that eventually, as we grow in our discipleship, we grow in our faith, we grow in our understanding and the work of the Holy Spirit in us, and keep asking, as Paul says in another book, Galatians, that we turn away from the acts of the flesh, the sin, and turn to the work of the Holy Spirit, and therefore the fruits of the Holy Spirit. So as God starts to renew our code, and we open our hearts and the doorways of our heart and the corners of our heart, he sows these good fruits into us. And so all those things down the river that used to trouble us, we can now stand on a foundation that is secure. He toka tu moana is a saying that is used, and I remember in the early years at Auckland University when we were studying the journey of Te Reo in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And there's a paper called Te Toka Tua Moana, and this journey of finding a rock that can stand and withhold and persevere through the waves that come, the crashing of the waves upon us. And so that someone else doesn't push our buttons and takes a withdrawal emotionally, or puts in our pack rubbish, or twists the rubber band. But we're able to rely on the Spirit of God to bring transformation, to bring regeneration. Excuse me. Do not conform any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformed in how we respond to the rubber bands, transformed in how we deal with the legacy of the rubbish in our packs, and transformed in how people approach us in regards to the emotional bank account. Allow God to transform your code, your DNA, so that you can stand on a rock, a foundation that is strong. Nō reira, e te whānau, kia koutou e mātakitaki ana. Mā te atua koutou manaaki e tia kinga wā katoa. This is Pastor Rewai Te Kahu, and you've been watching Word on Monday from here in Northland in Kaikwe. God bless.